One of the cast members of The Nanny was held at gunpoint during a home invasion. Another cast member would later become a real British lord. One of the child stars disappeared from Hollywood completely, and one became the voice of Supergirl. But the most unexpected story of all belongs to Fran Drescher. If you enjoy revisiting classic shows like this, consider subscribing to Backtrack Television, because the stories behind these shows are often more surprising than the shows themselves. When The Nanny premiered in 1993, it didn't look like a show that would become a global hit. It looked simple: a nanny from Queens, a wealthy family in Manhattan, and a house full of personalities that somehow worked perfectly together. But the show had something most sitcoms didn't. It had a very specific voice and personality, and that was because Fran Drescher wasn't really playing a character that was completely different from herself. The character of Fran Fine was based heavily on her real personality, her real voice,
It's you, Mr. Sheffield.
and even her real sense of humor and fashion. That's a big reason why the character felt so real, because she wasn't trying to sound like someone else. She was just exaggerating parts of her real personality. And then there were the outfits. Fran's wardrobe became one of the most famous parts of the entire show. Bright colors, bold patterns, and outfits that people still remember decades later. In fact, the wardrobe became so iconic that many of the outfits were later displayed in television costume exhibitions and retrospectives about 1990s television. Then there was the relationship between Fran and Maxwell. It wasn't just a sitcom romance. It was a slow-burn relationship that lasted for years. Viewers kept watching because they wanted to see if they would finally end up together. When they finally got married, it became one of the biggest moments of the entire series and a major television event for fans who had been watching for years. And then there was Niles and Cece. Their constant insults became one of the most famous running jokes in the entire show. The writers would actually try to outdo themselves each week to come up with even better insults, and it became one of the things fans looked forward to the most. The show also had a very classic sitcom setup, but the characters were very specific and very different from each other, which made the dynamic work. Maxwell was calm and proper. Fran was loud and unpredictable. Niles was sarcastic and observant. Cece was always trying to control everything. And the kids were all at completely different stages of growing up. That combination gave the show a very specific rhythm that made it feel different from other sitcoms at the time. And like a lot of shows from the 90s, it became part of people's daily routines. People watched it after school. People watched reruns in the evening. And over time, the characters started to feel familiar, almost like people you knew. And that's why, years later, people are still curious about what happened to the cast after the show ended. Because for a lot of viewers, it doesn't feel like they were just watching characters. It feels like they were watching people grow up on screen. If you want to watch the full series, I put links in the description. And one of the most surprising stories starts with the man who played Niles. Daniel Davis played Niles, the Sheffield family butler with the perfect British accent and an even sharper sense of sarcasm. He quickly became a fan favorite, mostly because of his insults towards Cece Babcock, which became some of the most memorable lines in the entire series. But there's something most viewers never knew. Daniel Davis wasn't British. The accent that sounded so convincing on the show was something he worked very hard to create. He studied classic British films and stage actors and practiced constantly so that the accent would never slip, because if it did, the entire character wouldn't work. One of the reasons his character worked so well was because of his timing. Most of his funniest moments weren't big jokes. They were quiet comments, looks, and perfectly timed lines that landed at exactly the right moment. That kind of timing usually comes from theater, where actors perform in front of a live audience and learn exactly how long to pause and when to deliver a line. Before The Nanny, he had already built a long and serious career in theater, performing in Broadway productions and Shakespeare plays. And after the show ended, he didn't disappear. He kept working. Television, film, and especially theater. He appeared in shows like The Blacklist and Gotham, and he continued performing on stage for many years, which is where many actors say they feel most at home. But while Daniel Davis stayed in acting, someone else from the show made a decision almost no one in Hollywood makes. She walked away from it. Lauren Lane played Cece Babcock, Maxwell Sheffield's business partner who spent most of the series trying to come between Fran and Maxwell, and losing every argument to Niles. Her character was obsessed with status, Broadway, and success. But in real life, Lauren Lane chose a completely different path. After The Nanny ended, she stepped away from television and film and returned to theater, But instead of staying in Hollywood, she moved to Texas and became a college theater professor, where she teaches acting and directing. She once said that teaching was incredibly rewarding because she could help young actors find their confidence and develop their skills. And in many ways, that became the second half of her career. It's also interesting because on the show, her character was always trying to climb higher in society and stay close to power and success. But in real life, Lauren Lane stepped away from that world entirely. Instead of chasing more television roles, she went back to theater and teaching, which is where many actors say the real craft of acting lives. But she wasn't the only one who left Hollywood after the show ended. Benjamin Salisbury played Brighton Sheffield, the middle Sheffield child who was known for his sarcasm, pranks, and constant attempts to outsmart Niles. He was one of the most recognizable child actors on the show, and like many child stars, people assumed he would continue acting, but he didn't. After the show ended, he went to college and studied journalism. Later, he worked in television production and media behind the scenes. Instead of being in front of the camera, he chose to work on the production side of the industry. A lot of child actors talk about how strange it is to grow up on a television set, because your childhood is very different from everyone else's. You go to school on set, you work long hours, and by the time the show ends, you've already had a full career before you're even an adult. So for some child actors, walking away from Hollywood isn't a failure. It's a choice to live a different kind of life. But everything we've talked about so far is nothing compared to what happened to Fran Drescher after the show. Because her story includes a home invasion, cancer, and eventually becoming one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. Because the oldest Sheffield child ended up having a career that most fans never saw coming. Nicholle Tom played Maggie Sheffield, the shy and awkward oldest daughter who slowly grew more confident as the show went on. Viewers got to watch her grow up over the course of the series, which made her character feel very real to a lot of people watching at home. But after the show, her career went in a direction that many viewers never saw, because it happened mostly behind the scenes. She became the voice of Supergirl in the DC animated universe. Voice acting is also a very different kind of fame. You can be part of a huge franchise, a huge show, or a huge character, and most people will recognize the voice, but not the face. For some actors, that's the perfect career, because they still get to act, but they also get to live a more normal life at the same time. So, while many fans still think of her as Maggie Sheffield, a completely different generation knows her as Supergirl. But the youngest Sheffield child had an even bigger transformation. Madeline Zima played Grace Sheffield, the youngest child who is known for her innocence, her therapy sessions, and her close bond with Fran. But as she got older, she made a very deliberate decision to take on more serious and darker roles. She appeared in shows like Californication, Heroes, and Twin Peaks, and she successfully transitioned from child star to adult actress, something that is very difficult to do in Hollywood. A lot of child actors get typecast, and audiences always see them as the kid they played on TV. So the fact that she was able to move into completely different roles and keep working as an adult actor is actually a very difficult thing to do. But even that's not the most unexpected story from this cast. Charles Shaughnessy played Maxwell Sheffield, the wealthy Broadway producer who hired Fran and eventually fell in love with her. He spent years playing a British aristocrat on television, but years after the show ended, fiction became reality. In 2007, he inherited a British title and became Baron Shaughnessy, a real British lord. It's also one of those rare moments where an actor's real life ends up sounding like something that would be written into the show itself. If a sitcom had written a storyline where Maxwell Sheffield suddenly inherited a title and became a real lord, it would have felt unrealistic. But in his case, that's exactly what happened. But even becoming a real lord isn't the most unbelievable story connected to this show, because the most unbelievable story belongs to Fran Drescher. And her story doesn't sound like a sitcom at all. Before The Nanny, Fran Drescher was just another actress trying to make it in Hollywood. She had small roles, auditions, and the kind of career that a lot of actors have for years before they get one big opportunity. But Fran wasn't just trying to be an actress. She was also trying to create her own show. And the way it happened sounds like something out of a movie. She was on a flight, and by complete chance, she sat next to a television executive. Instead of just saying hello and leaving it at that, she started pitching an idea right there on the plane. Her idea was simple: a flashy woman from Queens, a rich British family in Manhattan, and a fish-out-of-water story about a nanny who doesn't fit into that world at all. That idea became The Nanny, and she didn't just star in it, She co-created it with her husband at the time. The character of Fran Fine wasn't really a character. It was basically her. Her voice, her personality, her humor, her fashion. But while the show made millions of people laugh, her real life included moments that were anything but funny. Before she became famous, she was held at gunpoint during a violent home invasion. Years later, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer after years of being misdiagnosed. After recovering, she founded Cancer Schmancer to promote early cancer detection. Years later, she became involved in union leadership, and in 2021, she was elected president of SAG-AFTRA. Then in 2023, she became one of the central figures during the Hollywood actors' strike. The Nanny from Queens became one of the most powerful women in Hollywood. What makes Fran Drescher's story so unusual is how many different chapters there are in her life. Most people know her as Fran Fine, but before that, she was a struggling actress. After that, she became a cancer survivor and activist. And then later, she became a union leader and one of the most powerful voices in Hollywood. That's not one career. That's several completely different lives in one lifetime. And when you look back at The Nanny now, it's incredible to see how different all of their lives turned out. There's something a little emotional about looking back at shows like this. Because when these shows are on TV, the characters feel frozen in time. They don't age. They don't change. They don't move on. But the actors do. They grow up. They change careers. They go through struggles. They have successes. And their lives go in directions that no one could have predicted when the show first started. And maybe that's why shows like The Nanny are so nostalgic. Because when we watch it now, we're not just watching a sitcom. We're watching a moment in time. But this wasn't the only cast whose story took a surprising turn. Some of the biggest shows of the 90s had behind-the-scenes moments that completely changed their legacy. And one of them is even more shocking than this. If you think this story was unexpected, wait until you see what happened next. Click the video on your screen now. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Backtrack Television, and let me know in the comments what show you want to see next.